Hey guys, hi everyone. Hello, good evening everyone. I hope I'm audible as well as visible. Hello guys, hi everyone, good evening. Good evening, Ankit, S25, Govind, good evening, Pramod. I hope I'm audible as well as visible. Good evening, Arka. It's okay, completely, Govind. Please take care of your exams and all the best for that. Hi, Usman, Pradnia, Vikash, Ankit, Aditya, Akash. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Himanshi. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. So I can see students are joining, and we will start in 1 or 2 minutes. We will wait for some other people to join, and then accordingly we are going to start our class. I'm pretty much sure that there's not that much light coming from my side, but who cares? We have to focus on the topics, right? So that's what we are going to do. It's very much cold, not that much, but it's very much cold here. Sure, Govin, sure. Good evening, Amit. Good evening, Amit. Perfect, great. So I can see students are joining, but not all of them. So let's wait 1 or 2 minutes for rest of the students to join, and then accordingly we are going to start our class. Okay. Good evening, Sunday. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Allow me a minute only, and then we will start. Okay. I will also teach some of the Next.js, not all of it, but I will give you the heads up of what Next.js is. So we are going to discuss it. Okay. Let me put a message in the WhatsApp group, and then we'll start. Okay. Okay. Good evening, Shreyas. Good evening. Good evening. Hopefully, this week, next Thursday, we are going to take a session from 7 to 8. Okay, a Google Meet session where we will have a verbal discussion where I'm going to announce the group names and we are going to create groups there. Perfect. Wonderful, Akash. Make sure that once you watch that recorded lectures, you submit the attendance form because that's very mandatory. Okay, I guess we can start our class now. Shall we start, guys? Come on, I need everyone to put yes in the chat. Quickly. Good evening, Manash. Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, Abdul Malik. Good evening. Perfect. Okay, I guess we can start. So, finally, let's start. In our previous class, if I correctly remember, we had started a discussion on life cycle methods. We discussed life cycle methods from not from the perspective of only functional components, but from the class based components as well. We understood that whenever we talk about our lifecycle methods with respect to any component, there are three phases that every component goes through. Number one is called mounting, number two is called updation, number three is called unmounting. And when we talk about all of these three phases, it's not just an instance of time, but it is a time interval. And in that time interval, we have different methods that automatically trigger themselves based on what the phase of the component is. And that's what we mean as life cycle methods, right? And from the class based perspective, we discussed constructor method, we discussed get derived state from props, we discussed component did mount render, then in updation we discussed should component update, then we discussed render itself as well, and then we discussed component will update. So all of those methods which we discussed in our previous class, they were related to class based components when we talk about our life cycle methods. Finally, we started and shifted our discussion towards our functional components. And we started a very good discussion on use effect hook. We discussed that there is also a very important hook inside our React functional component that allows you to hook the life cycles with respect to functional component. And we discussed three possible cases of use effect hook. A use effect hook when there is no dependency. Quickly tell me, if there is no dependency as a second argument inside my use effect hook, at that point of time, when will this use effect be triggered? When will the function execute itself? Will it execute only in mounting or in both mounting as well as in updation? When is my use effect hook going to execute itself? Quickly tell me. In this case, if it is empty, if there's no dependency, very good. Mounting, updation, both. That's the correct answer, Akash. If I pass an empty dependency at that point of time, when it will execute itself only in mounting, right? When there is any state variable, let's suppose x comma y, in that case, the logic inside use effect will be executed in mounting 100%. But then whenever the value x and y changes, it's going to trigger the re-render. It's going to execute the use effect logic. This is what we discussed in our previous class. And we understood that whenever we have dependencies over here inside this dependency array, at that point of time, there might be a side effect that might arise while performing the logic in use effect hook. In order to eliminate that, we actually have a cleanup function. So every use effect hook can have a return function as well. It can return a cleanup function which will actually eliminate the side effects that particular function does. Now, this is pretty much what we discussed in our previous class. I won't spend too much time on it. It was a quick revision. I'm not feeling well. I have a cold. I have a zukam. That's why you might be, feeling that softness in my voice. But you have to bear it a little bit. Okay, not that much, but small. Okay, let's start our today's class. See, I'm not ending over here use effect hook. I will come back to use effect hook. Okay, there's a small project which we might do with respect to use effect hook in our one of the classes, maybe next class on what is this called, Sunday maybe. Okay, but in today's class I am going to start a complete different discussion. Hello Gaurav, hi Satish. That you might have heard from the title of this class as well. Hello Samita, which is React Forms. Now, when we talk about React Forms, sir, we have already discussed React Forms. Hello, Anil. So, why are we starting again our React Forms? We have not discussed React Forms. The discussion that I was actually doing in one of the classes was not related to React Forms, but it was related to state. But today, we are going to completely focus on React Forms. And there are a few hooks which are very important from the interview perspective, which we will discuss in today's class, whether it is UseRef hook, UseImperativeHandle hook, or we discuss about a forward ref function. So do not think of leaving the class. Do not leave. Stay here up till end. And definitely you are going to at least cover 3 to 4 interview questions in today's class. Okay. So let's start. When we talk about forms, inside our React, forms play a very important role, not in React, but in web development. Because we would always want to receive input from the user. And when we talk about receiving input from the user, there's only one type of component which actually helps us to deal with such kind of cases, and that is called a reactor. That's called forms, HTML forms, in which we have input field, we have selector, we have text area, we have a lot of types of elements with us. But if I talk about with respect to React, why do we have a separate class on forms? Because there are few things that we have to discuss, which is whenever we include our forms in a component, there can be two types of components with which we have to deal with. Number one component is called controlled component. Controlled components. Number two type of components that we actually have whenever React form is included in a component, we have uncontrolled component. Now, in one of the classes, I have already told you what controlled component is. So give me a quick confirmation in the chat. What do we understand by controlled component? And I'm very much hurtful right now because I can see only 25 students here. And I don't know why people lie on poll. There are almost 75 students who have said, that we will join. And unfortunately, I can see 28 students here. Okay, leave this discussion. What is a control component, guys? What's a control component? Quickly tell me. Quickly. Because I've already explained this in one of our classes. Anyone? Very good. Whenever we talk about our components and whenever we include our forms in our components, why do we use forms? That's the first question that we should ask. Why do we use forms? We use forms for only one particular agenda, which is to receive input from the user so that we can store it in the database and later on retrieve it and display it to the user. Now, in order to do that, whenever I create a form element, it's very mandatory for us to make sure that whatever input fields we are having over here, doesn't matter what type of input field we have, but whatever input field I actually have, we should be able to access those input fields. Yes or no? Right? We should be able to access, we should be able to see what we are typing inside it so that we can send it to database or we can actually store it somewhere. And for that, there are two ways to do that. Number one way, which we have already discussed, and we have discussed this in a very deep detail already, which is our forms, which is our state. Now, whenever we deal with state over there and try to capture the value that you type inside the input field with a state, at that point of time, the React form component becomes a controlled component. So if anyone asks to say what's a control component, it has been asked to me a lot of times in interviews. We simply answer that whenever we try to control the React form component using a state, we capture it with a state. At that point of time, we simply say that it is a controlled component. That's a very simple answer. Let's see a very simple example of it. As I said, we have already discussed it, right? Now I'm going to use the same analogies again. Okay. Let's suppose there is multiple input fields. Okay. As of now, there is only one. Let me create multiple. Okay. So this is text. This is email. This is a number, let's suppose. Okay. This is number. And this is finally my age. Sorry, password. Okay. Now there's a button called as, let's suppose there's an input field whose type is actually submit. And to this, there's a value which is submit itself as well. Done. Now, if I try to execute this particular code, we know that we are going to see 4 input fields in the output. So let me quickly create a terminal here. And in this terminal, we are going to execute the command, which is npm start. And it will trigger my web application in the output. So let's go here. Let's wait for it. Perfect. I can see my server has been triggered and we can clearly see as of now, it is giving me some random jokes. Why is it giving me some random jokes? Because if I go in my app.js, we can clearly see there is an application already created and that application is fetching a random joke from the API. So let me cut it out and let me place it here. Done. Now I will simply call my control component over here quickly and then we will try to understand what control component is. So let me call my control component like this. And if I try to see my output, we can clearly see multiple input fields very well. Now, how many input fields I have here? I have 4 input fields. And to deal with these 4 input fields, how many states will I create, guys? Quickly tell me in the chat. The worst case scenario is to capture all of these values inside this input field. The worst case scenario actually is we are going to implement 4 states. But I won't do that because I have already told you the best way of storing our storing our multiple input fields in a single state. So I will simply go here, define, let's suppose, constant a state with the name of form data, comma, set my form data is equals to use state. Then after that, what am I going to do, guys? Quickly tell me. I'm going to define those 4 keys. So over here, the first key that I will define is actually name. So let me simply go say name, then comma. I'm going to pass over the email. Very good. Then comma. I'm going to pass over their phone. Very good. Because the number can be a phone in our form. And finally, I'm going to pass a password like this. So if you see, First is name, so name. Second is email, email. Third is number, phone. Fourth is password, password. Very good. After that, to link these four values with my four input fields, what are we going to do? We are going to use a very important concept which we discussed in one of the classes called as two-way data binding, which is that I am going to use a value attribute over here, and in this value attribute I will simply implement form data dot what name. So when I say form data dot name, it is linked with this part of the state. Similarly, over here, I'm going to go and implement value and then form data dot, I'm going to simply pass email here. Very good. Similarly, let me go here, value over here. So in this case, I'm going to pass a value which is form data dot, what's the another one? Phone. So let me use phone. Very good. And finally, after that, I'm going to implement value here, which is form data dot password. Now, quickly tell me, how am I going to make sure that every input field only updates that part of that particular state? So whenever I type anything inside this input field, it should only update name key at that point of time. Whatever email, phone, password is, do not interfere with them. What is the syntax I'm going to use in that particular case, guys? Come on, guys. Going for that, I think we have already discussed in our previous class. You can, navigate to that class later on. So what's the event that I'm going to use first of all? To make sure that at this point of time, we know if I try to go to the output, it doesn't matter whatever I type or I won't be able to see it. I won't be able to see it. Now, the first thing that we have to understand over here is that whenever I go inside this particular input field, whatever I type here, it should be my state updation as well. So for that, what is the event that I'm going to use? Of course, not on click. Not on click. Not on click. What's the event? What's the event? That detects the change inside the input field. The event that detects the change inside the input field is on change. Very good, S25. It's on change. On change. Do what? Update my state. Now, in previous class, I have already shown you, not in previous class, I have already shown you how to update it. So let me simply go tell it at this point of time, please update my set form data. Please update it with what? With what? What am I going to do over here? What am I going to do over here? Pass it. Can I pass directly tell it to update my form data dot name with e dot target dot value? Can I do that? No, I cannot, right? Because I've shown you that in our previous class. We have to implement something which will depend on the previous state. And whenever we update our state based on the previous state, we use one of the very important arguments to the set state function called as updater function. So we will pass a callback function here, and that function is called updater function. Do you guys remember that? Quickly give me a yes or no in the chat. What do we do? Don't we remember that whenever we try to update a state, there are two syntaxes that we use. If we directly put a value, it means change that state with this value. But if we pass a callback function, it means go and see what the previous state was and then update it accordingly, right? So we have two syntaxes. So I will pass another here. In this, it's going to receive priv. Priv means the state at that point of time. Then I am simply going to tell it to return an object. Where you will simply update your, first of all, separate rest of the previous values, separate all the values that are present inside the form data, all the previous, which means it will paste over here name, email, phone, password, then comma, update only name. Now in this name, please put e dot target dot value like this. Am I clear? Am I clear? Is this what we do? So I will simply go here, copy the same logic of this on change and place it everywhere. So Control C, and let me go here. I'm not making you understand what I'm writing here because we have already discussed this. So if there is any confusion, make sure you watch that video. Okay, so let me go here, paste it here. And finally, I'm going to go here and paste it here as well. Now, in this case, what am I going to change? I'm going to change my email. In this particular case, what am I going to change? I'm going to change my phone. And then in this case, I'm going to change just my password. So it makes sure that on every single input field, two-way data binding is implemented. Whatever my value I am typing inside the input field, it corresponds to the respective field only. It updates the respective state only. this value of that particular input field. That's what I'm doing. Now, finally, on this particular form, I can put an event, right? On submit. Trust me, I want to teach you something else. Okay, this is what we have already discussed. I'm giving a quick overview. And in this case, I will simply say handle submit. So let me define a handle submit over here. So handle submit function. So let me define a function called as handle submit. And in this particular case, I will simply tell first thing. Whenever we do a form submission, now this is today's topic. Whenever you submit a form has a default nature. What is that? It will refresh the whole page. It is going to refresh the whole page, which is not what we would want. So we would simply want to handle the submission of the form first. That is why whenever we submit our form, the first thing that we actually keep in our mind is we prevent the default nature. So I am simply going to use e.prevent default over here. Done? Yes or no? Am I clear? So e.prevent default. Why? Because we need to understand whatever this function is doing, let it do it without refreshing the whole page. So we have to implement e.prevent default. Now with this data, whatever you want to do, you can do that. It's completely up to you. At this point of time, if I simply go here and try to display my form data dot, I will say name, and then I will simply pass my form data over here. So I'm going to pass my form data dot email. Although we have to pass it in two separate expression like this. I can do, of course, like this. Wonderfully. If I go to my output, we can clearly see over there. If I refresh my page, let me type something here. You can clearly see it's being updated here. Let me type something here. You can clearly see it's visible here. So the point is not actually to make a form and then capture its data. No, the point is we are capturing data, but actually with help of a paradigm, and that paradigm is called state. We are updating it with a state over here, right? Now I can do one thing. I can define a state over there. I can define constant. I will simply say condition comma set my condition, and this is going to be by default a false over there. So let me simply go make it false. Now in this case, I will simply tell please set my condition over here to true. So whenever this is called at that point of time, I will make it true. Now whatever I am displaying with respect to that particular form, I can actually put it in an expression, which is whenever my condition is true. At that point of time, please go there. Allow me a second. At that point of time, display an H1 in which you will simply display something like this. So at this point of time, if you look, whenever I type name over here, let's suppose Adfar Rashid. Now I will go here, type maybe a@gmail.com. Why are they not right now visible? Why? Because the rendering of these two input fields, the value inside them is dependent on a state. At this point of time, the default value of that state is false. But I know whenever I submit this form, it is going to actually make that true and display it. Now, what I want is I simply want one small condition, which is whatever values I type here, as soon as I submit, it will display the data, but it should make the input fields again empty. What should it do? It should make the input fields again empty. How can I do that? How can I do that? Quickly. How can I do that? Very good. What we will do is we will simply tell it one small thing here, which is that, hey, as soon as you submit it, make the state empty. If I go here and if I simply tell it at this point of time when this happens, over here, go and update my state. But which state I'm talking about right now? What is it going to make empty there? Yes, Mritunjay. Of course, I do know you from one of the batches in Newton School. Okay, so tell me, what am I going to do here? What am I going to do here? I want that as soon as I actually submit this particular form, it should exactly at that point of time make these input fields empty. You can see right now, whatever I am typing here, very good. Whatever I'm typing here, it's getting displayed here. But as soon as submitted, it should be empty. What am I going to do? I am going to update the state values with emptiness. So I am simply going to tell it set my form data. which is going to depend on previous maybe, and then over there do one small thing, which is because I don't want to change other things. I want to only change two right now. So go over here and tell it to return. What is it going to return? My previous state. I don't care why rest of the values are used, but I am actually interested in two values here. Number one is name, make it empty. Number two is email, make it empty. Right? Why would I use set timeout? Why would I do that? Because I know the logic says over here, Govind, that whenever I have the submit button clicked, make the input fields empty. Why? Now, how am I making it empty? Because I know the value is form data.name. So whatever form data.name is, that's the value. So since I have made it empty, so automatically it's going to make those input fields empty as well. I hope this makes sense. But why would we use set timeout, right? Because that's not what our requirement was. It's a very straightforward requirement, right? So let's go here. Let's click submit. It displays the data. Let's go here and I will simply say add the fur. Although let me refresh the page because I'm not making it true over this. So add for Rashid. Then I'm going to go write a@gmail.com. Now I will simply submit. Now when I submit, there's something else happening. This is going to be very interesting here. Now what's happening? What's happening? Is this correct output? Yes, it's correct output. Of course, it's correct output. Why? Because Sarji, it's not correct output. I did not see those values in the output. Of course, how can you see them? Don't you think as soon as it made it true, it immediately made this empty as well? So that's why you won't be able to see form data.name, form data.email. But our requirement is completely met. So if I remove only name here, let's suppose, and I go here and tell it over here, whatever this is, you can clearly see as soon as submit it, only name should be there. Although let me type @.com here. So submit, you can see name only, email is empty. Because of that, I'm saying, but why would we use that? See, first of all, number one is always understand, will we ever do this? Will you ever display input fields in the H1 tags? Of course not. Whenever we have form data, our most of the times our agenda would be to send the data to the backend or take these input fields and retrieve something from the database with these input fields. So it will never, most of the case, it will never have to do with the profile section, like displaying the data immediately there. So that's why we won't go there, right? But there's one very important question here. I remember this was one of the questions on which I was rejected in one of the interviews when I was a fresher, when I was learning React. I knew at that point of time what controlled components is, uncontrolled components is, but this is something that rejected me, honestly. The question is that at this point of time, if you see in these input fields, I am creating 4 on changes. Yes or no? Yes or no? Yes, sir. You are creating 4 on changes. Now, this is something very important. And I would be very much happy if you are able to answer this. I swear. Not only one student, but I want most of you to try and give me the answer. I will give you 2 minutes of time. If you see, I have 4 on change events. And if you look at this, I am continuously writing the same logic. Like this is exactly same, this is exactly same, this is exactly same, this is exactly same. So all these 4 function handlers that are placed in front of these 4 input fields are exactly same. Think that you have 10 input fields, 20 input fields. Do you think you will create the same code again and again? No. So how can I actually control this? How can I make sure that I will simply put, since it's the same code, I will put it in a function. Let's suppose function handle change. Okay, handle change. Now this is a very simple function. Tell me, how am I going to make sure that this handle change, if I call it here, let's suppose instead of this, I am going to call this handle change here. Instead of this, I am going to call my handle change here. Right? Handle change here. And instead of this, I'm going to call my handle change here. And then instead of this, I'm going to call my handle change here. So what am I going to do? Handle change, handle change, handle change. But what is this handle change supposed to do? This handle change is supposed to do that whenever I type inside this input field, it will call this function, but it will only update name state of it. It is not going to touch other things. Similarly, whenever I type inside this function is the logic is has to be written in a way so that it will only target email and update it. Don't interfere with other states. So what am I going to do here? What exactly? Think about it and tell me. Let me know. Come on, guys. This is what we want. Let me elaborate a little bit more. If you are not able to answer this, if you are not able to make logic, then in that case, you need to understand your JavaScript point of view looking at a website is very, very weak. Okay, I will tell you why. Because since when I will start explaining, you will say, okay, it was too easy. The problem, do you know why the problem lies? You do not understand the problem, first of all. You don't break the problem into multiple parts. This is how I would have answered if I would have at your place. So what Sir wants is, Sir wants that whenever I go inside the first input field, let me select the other color first of all. So Sir wants that there are 4 input fields. Very good. Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. Very good. So if I type over their name, I will type over here email, I will type over here phone, and over here I will type pass. Very good. So what Sir wants is that on this I have an on change event on this, on this, on this, on all, and I'm calling the same function which is handle change. Handle change. Think about this and listen to my words very carefully. So over here, Sir says when I start typing over there, the state updation, the function which will be responsible for updating name is handle change only. When I type inside this, the function which will be responsible for changing email only, not name, phone, and password, is actually my handle change. So every single time the function is being called and it's handle change only. But how can I make sure that it is going to actually send the value of this input field at that point of time? And how am I going to receive it here? That's the first thing. Now, this is the problem statement. Now let's go to solution statement. I would be able to solve under only one condition, which is that whenever I go to this input field, I bring a change. Whatever I am typing here, only that should come here, not the otherwise. Very good. Similarly, whenever I type here, whatever I type here, it should come, not the other input fields. Very good. Do you think that whenever we talk about any event, something gets created? Something gets created that gives this function information what that element is about. Do you think that? Hanji. Whenever you have a function, you associate function handler with it. As soon as that function is triggered, an event object gets created. Yes or no? An event object gets created. Yes or no? We know that. Whenever we have a function, we trigger it, an event object gets created. Now, simply understand this. When this event is triggered, don't you think it's going to send this input field's information to this handle change via object called as event? Similarly, when this event is triggered, at that point of time, I can transfer and receive event over there. And this event will be information only with respect to this input field where it was triggered, where from it was triggered. Similarly, so on and so forth. Very good. Now, over here, what am I going to do? I am going to find a way so that I will make sure that whatever the value of this is, it's going to only update the name of it. So I will implement one another form. I understood that where from doesn't matter what input field is, but at this point of time, let me do one thing here. Let me simply go say console.log event dot target. Okay, this is what I want to do. E dot target, not event, but e dot target. Okay, let's see how it goes. So I will go simply in the console and I will simply write here. Now let me refresh my page. If I simply click on this, now you can see. Now when I start click on this, although it did not display the change, but input type text value is the event dot target. When I go here, start typing here, at that point of time, input type email is the target. So over here, when I type over here, at that point of time, you can clearly see what at this point of time is. I'm not able to see anything. but there might be some issues with the, not issues, of course it's a proper function. Now it works, okay, because I started with E, that's the issue. You can see input type number, and now when I start typing here, at that point of time input field type password is being triggered. So we can clearly understand over there this E is very powerful. So since all of them are supposed to do the same task, doesn't matter where from we are going to trigger the event, this function will only point to that input field only. Yes or no? To that input field only. Am I clear? So it does not matter where from I am typing. The answer is this particular thing is actually receiving information. It knows where from it is being triggered because of that event field, event object. Very good. Now, if I simply go here and I would simply tell it, set my form data. Set my form data with what? With the updater function where I'm going to pass previous. And then please tell it to return prev. Now, over here, if you remember your previous example, we wrote name is equals to e dot target dot value, something like this. But I don't want it to be name. I want it at one point name, another point email, another point phone, another point password, based on where from it is being triggered. So I can simply go here, give it an attribute, which is name itself. So name is equals to exactly the name of the state which it actually denotes, which is name. So over here, I will go define name. Name is equals to what? Email in this case. And in this case, over there, name. And over here, I'm going to pass my phone. So let me pass my phone here. And finally, in this case, I'm going to pass a name. Name is equals to password. So what have I done? Whatever their state names are, I have exactly given name attribute in the same manner. So don't you think instead of name, I will simply pass square bracket e dot target dot name. Now think about it. I'm going to give you 1 minute of time and tell me whether it's a correct logic or not. And if there's any single person who has an issue, I will repeat. I will give you 1 or 2 minutes. Think about this, look at it, and tell me, sir, this is too easy. It was one line of code. Although when I was a fresher, I didn't live. I got rejected in an interview. But do you think this is the solution? Do you think this is the solution? Give me a quick confirmation. Correct. Correct. Everyone must reply. Make sure you like the video right now if you are enjoying the session. So what have I done? I know based on where from this event handler, function handler is being triggered, it is going to receive this particular input field inside the e dot target. So where from I am sending it, it knows where from it is being triggered. So I can pass also a name. So this particular thing means when on change is being triggered from here, at that point of time, whatever e dot target dot name is, which is name itself, put it here. So target that key only. So name becomes e dot target dot value and email, phone, password on the respective time as well. So now if I go here in my output and let me refresh my page, I will simply go here add for whatever, right? In this case, a@a.com. Now, when I click on submit, although it will display only name, why? Because I have told it over here to update this. So let me remove this or let me comment this. So now we can clearly see in our output, as soon as I type email as well, you can clearly see that email as well. So which means whenever change is happening in such input field, it's not affecting rest. It's only updating its own state. So this is very important question. And trust me, if I have to know whether students knows what events are, what all of those are, I'm going to definitely ask this question in React. One of the very cool questions, one of the very important questions. I hope this makes sense, right? Now, conclusion. Whenever I have a React component, and inside that React component, I am using forms, meaning input fields or any form element, then to deal with those input form elements, we use state. If we use state to manage it, at that point of time, we say the component is called controlled component. Am I clear? Am I clear? Quickly, everyone. Everyone, am I clear? Everyone must reply. Perfect. Let's move towards the next. Now, this is something which is a lot of confusing to some students. Even it used to be confusing for me as well, for me as well for a lot of years. And even in last year only, I got the understanding of it, like what it is, okay, which is uncontrolled component. Okay, although the topic should not be uncontrolled component, you can write the heading. The topic name is refs. Topic name is refs. But since we are discussing forms, so I'm going to discuss controlled components first, and then we will talk about refs, what refs are. Okay. Now, whenever we have a form element, so let me create a form element. Let me create the form element here. So simple form element like this. In this particular form element, I will have few input fields, whatever those input fields are. Okay. So type text, and let me not give anything else. Let me create, copy these things. So Control C, Control V, Control V, Control V. Let me make this email. So let me make this email and let me make this password. Done. Finally, I have a button over there, and that button is called input field with a type submit. Done. The value is submit itself. Perfectly fine. Now, I would want anything. I would want to send the data inside this input field to the local storage, to the database, right? Or to do whatever we want to do with it, right? But we need to understand one thing here. If I do not have the state, what am I going to do? Whenever, instead of accessing your values or controlling your input fields with help of state, instead of that, you actually use DOM. Now, when we say DOM, what does that mean? That means target. E dot target. E dot target means that particular element itself. Do we all understand that? So why do we use E dot target in most of the cases? We actually access that particular element via DOM. So whenever we try to control the form with DOM instead of state at that point of time, the form component becomes uncontrolled form components. Remember that. No, not get element by ID. There's a proper hook which we actually use. We don't use those DOM methods. I'm not saying DOM methods. I'm saying DOM. Simple DOM. Now, DOM means accessing the node. That's it. Now, I'm not saying how we will access the node. We are simply saying we are going to access it with DOM. Okay. For example, I want one small thing here, which is maybe I want to display this. I want to do whatever I want. I don't care about that. Although there's one very important thing, which is that can we actually, do we have references or this uncontrolled component as the alternative state? Absolutely not. I will give you completely idea of that. Before I come here, before I discuss this, let me create one other component here called as ref.js, because it's something that we need to understand. And trust me, there's no one that's going to teach you this. Okay, let me teach you what refs are. Although there are a lot of videos already on the YouTube, don't worry about it. But I'm saying in different analogy what refs actually are. There are a lot of things related to refs that you don't know. A lot of things that there are related to ref. So let's understand what ref is. This very important hook inside our React called as UseRef. And let's understand what this UseRef is. And is it the alternate of state? That should be my first question from my side. No, it's not. Can you guys tell me that there are 2 points that I actually gave you? There are 2 points that I actually gave you in state when I told you that's why we need state. What are those 2 points? That I want to retrieve the value of that data point between multiple re-renders. That was the first point of state. Second was it should trigger the re-render. Yes or no? It should trigger the re-render. These were the 2 points. So if it would have been alternate of state at that point of time, it means that it should do those 2 tasks. Of course not. It does not do that. So let's go here and let's understand what UseRef actually is. So I will create any H1 or anything, what doesn't matter what it is. I will create Adfar Rashid here. Okay. And in this particular case, I am going to implement a simple state. Okay. Write down few points. Write down few points. It's not alternate of state, number one thing. Number two is it stores the value, like state. It stores the value. It does not cause any re-render. UseRef can never cause any re-render. But there's one property associated with it that links it with state somehow. Not links, but resembles it, which is it will persist value between multiple renders. Which means if you store the value, now sometimes our requirement is, now this is the question to some people who might have asked, sir, we know what UseRef is. It creates a reference. If someone is here experiencer. But the point is, sir, why would we use UseRef? Because you will use UseRef in such instances when your task is, when your requirement is that we want a data point in which we will store data, but it should not change between multiple re-renders. Do you understand? For example, I will say where a is equals 10. Then if I actually re-render, it will always be 10. But when I talk about my UseRef or ref, it will always, the value inside ref stays the same even if the component re-renders. That's the most beautiful thing about it. Let me tell you what I actually mean by this. Okay, what I mean by this. I will create a variable, simple, whatever variable you want to create, constant. Let me say whatever, ref is equals to, I will simply use ref. Okay, and it receives the argument which is initial value, the value that you want to store. Okay, I will tell you whether it's like storage or not, local storage or not, initial value. Now, what does it initial value dot means? For example, I will simply say 0. Okay, usually we put null in it or whatever, but whatever value, it's initial value, it can be anything. Whatever you want to store inside this, you can simply put it there, like use state. I simply want to console.log my ref. I want to see what it is. And let me go to my app and let me remove this control component here. Let me call simply ref. Okay. If I go to this remove uncontrolled as of now as well. Let's have only ref. I've simply console ref. I want to see what this ref is, nothing else. You can see this gives me an object, which is current. Always remember that whenever you use UseRef hook, it returns you an object. Okay. And that object has a pointer. It is like a pointer. It points to that particular value which you store in it with a current property. So at this point of time, I'm storing 0. That's why current refers to 0. Current points to 0. But later on, I might store some DOM element in it. I might store H1, H2. So this current, there's only one property. Current is equals to that particular entity. Current is equals to the value which you want to store in it. For example, I will go here and I will create an argument to this H1. The argument is called ref, in which I will use my ref. So let me give this ref H1 instead of this ref H. Okay, or similarly, I will go write ref H and let me write ref H here. Okay, what have I done? What have I done here? What have I done? I have simply told this reference that instead of 0, please create the reference with H1. So initially it was 0, but now what am I going to do? I am going to actually reference. I'm creating a reference with H1, which means I am accessing it via DOM. I will tell you how. If I go to my console here, you can see at this point of time, even if I refresh this, it is giving me current is equal to 0. But let me create a button over here. So what am I going to do? I'm going to create a button which will actually print this ref edge, not this. Okay. So let me create a button, and this button says click. Let's hope it prints this. Let's hope, because I am doing this printing thing first time. But let's hope. What is this? Let's say handle. Click. So Control C over here. Let me paste this handle click function handle click, and let me go here, 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 here. Why was it displaying 0? Because top to bottom approach. Now in this case, I am saying ref edge dot current is equals to 100. Do you think it's a valid operation? Let's see. Let's see what the suggestion it gave. Let's see that, and then I will simply say console.log ref edge. Let's see that. If I go here, if I refresh my page right now, when I refresh my page, I will click on this. So when I click on this, what is current? Current becomes 10. But if I go here, if I simply try to display it, okay, let's suppose I want to display this ref edge. So what am I going to do? I'm going to say ref edge. ref h dot current because I know it's in current property. So let me go here and let's see. So you can see 100 over here. Now if I refer the page, click on this, you can see it becomes 100, but it is not triggering the re-render. Why is the change not visible here, guys? It is making it 100 every single time, but why is the change not visible? Can anyone tell me? Can anyone tell me why is the change not visible? Why the change is not visible? Why? Because you must understand it cannot trigger a re-render. In order to display the change, it must trigger a re-render. It must trigger a re-render. Without re-rendering, it does not let React know. React को पता ही नहीं चलता है. React is unable to see that it has become 100. But on its own, I am updating it to 100 because we are not re-rendering. It does not trigger it. That's why I said it will persist the value between multiple re-renders, but it is not going to trigger a re-render. Now, instead of making it 100, I want to remove this line of code. So let me remove this line of code and I will now go here to my output. So if I refresh my page, let me click on. So when I click on this, now you can see it points to something. This object points to something. What does it point to? What does it point to, guys? Quickly tell me. What does it point to? It points to that node itself, where I have created a reference. So it points to the node. So it simply means I am right now trying to create a reference, accessing the value with help of the node. It accesses the H1 right now. And if I try to open it, you can clearly see. Now this current has all the properties. So whatever you want to see, e.current.class, e.current.this, e.current.whatever. But the point is this current, the object, this reference actually returned. That object actually points to what? It points to what? It points to the node itself. Because I have created a reference with that input field. Now there might be a simple question. Sir, with help of this, let's suppose I know ref h that I have, this points, sorry, give me a second. This ref h points to the input h1. So can I write ref h dot inner HTML? Do you think that will work, guys? Ref h dot current, sorry, ref h dot current because h1 is in current. Dot inner HTML is equals to, make it is equals to, please share and subscribe. Do you think it's going to work? Do you think it's going to work? Come on, guys. What do you think? Yes, I think. Anyone else? Let's see. If I go here, objects are not valid React child, because I am accessing it here. So let me remove this. I cannot display h1, right? Directly. H1 is an object. I cannot render h1. So let me refresh the page. It's advertised here. Now if I click on this, it says please share and subscribe. Now you will say, sir, how is this change visible? Is that a question? How is this change visible? How? Because it did not trigger the render, but it accesses the node, na. It accesses the DOM, na. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? It did not trigger the re-render. But when it accesses the node, that automatically let React know you have to update the UI. Because we are directly accessing the node. We're directly telling it current dot inner HTML, current dot current. What is current? Current is H1 itself. So it's going to display the change over here. But if it would have been anything that I'm directly displaying, in that case, it would not have been visible. For example, ref h dot current displayed in an h1 tag. That won't happen. Let me tell you one thing here. Let's do one thing here. Let's do one thing. I want to say h1. Okay, like another tag, and over there I will simply say ref h dot current dot inner HTML. Okay, like this. Do you think it will display the inner HTML of h1? So if I go here, you can clearly see it says please share and subscribe, right? If I click on this, now why is it not displaying the another one? Why is it not displaying the another one? Why? Why is it not displaying it another one? Is that not what my h1.current.html is? But over there, it does not let the React know, na. That's something beautiful here related to UseRef. So even when I click on this, it's not changing it. It's not changing it. Not it will never change it. It will not never display that H1. But if I directly access the ref.current something, it's going to bring the change. So this is what we mean by accessing a node via DOM. This is what we mean by current ref. Am I clear? Am I clear? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? I don't think you should get confused. This is something that you should enjoy. Even if you're not able to understand, you should enjoy this and rewatch later on. Go win. Okay? I hope this makes sense. Now, Saji, I still don't understand why would I use UseRef. Yes or no? I do not understand why would I use UseRef hook in React. Like I can do the same thing using useState. Why would I do that? Because it's not about UI. It's not about UI. Trust me. The point is, yes, I can access the UseRef hook. I can, access the DOM tree. I can access the change. I can do the change. But it's not about that. It's actually about some specific small tasks. For example, I simply want to implement a let's say function. I want to implement a function over there. Function on an input field, which is going to put the focus on that input field. Try to understand what I'm trying to say. I want that input field should receive focus. For that, do you think you will create state? To create a focus on an input field. We know what focus is, right? So input field is, I want it to receive focus. Focus means I want it to open without directly going into it. So that's what we mean of focus, right? So do you think for that you will create state? It's for small tasks. UseRef, when we talk about UseRef, it's very important for us to understand. It's actually for small tasks. The changes that I will do to ref.current are immediately available in code, but don't cause a re-render. So in such cases, our UI won't actually update itself. Do you understand? Do you understand this? Yes or no? Let me give a better answer. Why we need accessing DOM elements directly. That's the first answer. Whenever we want to access the DOM elements directly, it's the answer. Why? Sometimes you need to interact with DOM directly. In what cases? In cases like I want to focus an input, or I want to put a scroll in the div. In such cases, we will implement our UseRef. So whenever our implementation is, our requirement is we want to access the DOM tree for small tasks, in such cases, we are going to implement refs. We are going to implement UseRef over there because we can access DOM tree directly. I hope this makes sense. Okay. Another very important functionality. Sometimes we want to simply store a value, a mutable value. Sometimes our requirement is we want to store mutable value. Let me explain the same thing with a better example. I will give a simple question. You have a task that you want to maybe what is called observe. You want to observe a change in component. How many times this change happened? Let's suppose that's what your task is. So you will simply create a counter, maybe. Let's suppose you create a counter for that. Now that counter is supposed to change itself. So when you do the change, it will add 1 to it, 2 to it, 3 to it, 4 to it, 5 to it, 6 to it, 7 and so on and so forth. But one very important point. In order to start this counter and then change it 1, 2, 3, 4. What am I going to use? I'm going to use state, but that causes a re-render. I do not want that particular value, so I can observe how many changes happen to cause re-render. I do not want that. So what am I going to use in that case? I'm going to use UseRef. So I want to store mutable values, but those mutable values should not cause any re-render. So in that case, we actually use our UseRef. So when you want to keep track of a value across renders, you want to keep track. You have some requirement in your web application where you want to track the value across renders, across multiple renders, but you don't want to trigger. For example, you want to simply start a timer, start a counter, previous value. You want to understand, hey, this is my counter, what was its previous value? In such case, we will use UseRef. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Give me a quick answer in the chat. then I will move forward. Am I clear? Am I clear, guys? Am I clear? I think, gave an example. Everyone must apply. Everyone must apply. Perfect. Moving forward. I'm still not going to go into uncontrolled components. I'm going to continue the discussion of ref. Let's suppose the examples that I actually gave, since Govind is saying, sir, give an example, Rohit is saying, give an example, let me give you an example. Let's suppose I have an input field, okay, and on this input field, I want to perform a task. Leave uncontrolled components aside, or a button, or anything, whatever. It's, remember, UseRef is people related only with input fields. UseRef is not for input fields. UseRef is for accessing that node, DOM. So it can be implemented on anything, H1, H2, H5, H5, H100, H1000, wherever you want, okay? Let's suppose I have this input field. Now I will simply go create a ref. Another ref, you can create hundreds of refs. So constant, I will simply create a variable input ref is equals to use state. Since some students are a little bit confused about it, so let's make it more clear. Now after that, I simply want that it should receive the connection with the input field. So what am I going to do? Ref is equals to input ref. So at this point of time, can anyone tell me what is this input ref at this point of time? What is this input ref? Quickly, guys, what is this input ref? At this point of time, what's input ref? Simple question. It is not state. Of course not. It's not state. No, it's not null S25. It's not. That was the initial value. But as soon as I created ref over there, you need to understand that, first of all, even if it's not there, since S25 gave an answer and I think little bit confusion is there, this will always be an object. It will never be a single value. It will never be null. It will never be zero. It will never be anything else. It will be an object. And inside that object, there will be only one property, and that property is called a current. Now the point is that current keeps updating itself. When this ref was created at that point of time, current was null at that point of time. But since I created ref and connected with this input field, so the current points to the input field. So current colon input at this point of time. Yes or no? Very good. Now over here, what I actually want is I simply want to create button. On this button, I will simply say focus. So what I want to do, I want to focus, which means that if I go right now to my output, right now when I click on this, is anything happening? No. What I want is that when I click on this, it should insert, it should take my control and give me the control of this input field. That's what I want. Now tell me, how can we do that with state? And why would we create state in this case? The later one, Akash. The later one, right? Because even in this case, I started with null, then update with. So what is the later one? It will update it with that. What am I going to do? How am I going to make sure that whenever I click on this focus, this input field receives focus? E dot target dot focus. Very good. Let's suppose I will go here, I will create E dot target. But what is the E dot target? Do you think E dot target, when you click on this, is button or input field? Try to understand, na? If I click on this and tell it to receive input field focus, but E dot target is button or E dot target is input field? E dot target is button at that point of time, because from button event is being triggered. Yes or no? Right? And even in that case as well, there's a lot of coding that I have to do, even if I'm able to achieve that. Right? That's why I will go here and I will simply tell on click. And on this on click, please call a function. And in that, go and tell this particular function that the input ref that I have, inside that there's a property called as current. Okay. And that current is the input field. So please call focus function on it. So I will simply go call focus function here. And if I go over here, simply click on focus, you can clearly see it receives focus. Am I clear? Am I clear? So you can see if I click on this, it receives focus. If I click anywhere else, it does that doesn't happen. But if I click on this, it receives focus. I hope this makes sense. Now this is a very simple example. Why would you create state in such case? And I did not want it to re-render. I don't want it to re-render. I simply wanted some DOM tree, some DOM thing to perform in a certain way. And whenever we want it to perform in a certain way, we will actually use UseRef via DOM. And our intention is to actually make sure that we access DOM directly. I'm not using useState. Why am I using useState? Why am I using? See, I will tell you what's happening here. In this case, I use useState, not useRef. So that's something that we need to understand. Let's understand what happens. How? Let me see for myself as well. I will go. Let me do one thing here. It is supposed to be useRef. I have unfortunately missed it with useRef. But how it is working, let's figure out that. So where is this function? Let me remove this entire code. Control X and let me call a function. Handle. What is it? Button. Right? Let me go here. Let me define function and let me say handle button button. There's nothing that's you just have to understand your code. Even if it's working in this case, let's see. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to say first of all console.log. Tell me what my input ref is. And let me go here and let's see what it is. So if I refresh my page, let me click on this. It actually returns two things, three things actually. Null, function, and current is equals to input. So at this point of time, we can clearly understand one another thing, which we do not usually talk about. Even I have never talked about even why, because I've never studied it. And there's no one that talks about it. You can see that actually my use state returns three things. Don't we guys see that? It returns three things. Number one is the value. Number two is the function, setter function. Number three is the current. Do you see that? There's something very cool. I guess there's something that you should explore. Put a proper what is this called? Post around it. It's something that's very cool, right? See the structure of use state. So let me leave this aside. Let's go and let me do one thing. Ref. It's actually because of ref. Of course. It's because of ref. It's because of ref attribute. It's not use state only returns two things always. It's because of ref attribute. Even if I remove this, let me remove this. Control X. It's because of ref. Ref means create the reference, right? Let me see if in this case it returns three things. No, it returns two things only. Since I am using ref means attach a reference to it. So it's because of that. It's absolutely correct. So instead of use state, I will use useref now. Done? It's because of ref attribute. I hope that makes sense. Am I clear? It does not return three things. It returns two things only. Since I have implemented ref, so what it has done is it has created a reference with that state, with that function that's behind use state. That's what's happening. But I hope now you have completely understood that what references are and how it creates a reference with that input, with that element. So one of the most important confusions you need to take out of your mind is that useref is not for input fields. Useref is for DOM. Create a reference with that DOM element. Okay? Because state will trigger a re-render na. Whenever there's a change in state, it will trigger re-render. Why would we want that, Govind? Triggering re-render, what does that mean? That means a lot of work. That's the first. That's what we have been discussing from last half an hour. I hope this makes sense, right? So with this, we will take a break of 10 minutes now. And after that, in the meantime, think about what we have done, discussed related to UseRef. We're going to continue our UseRef for next 40 minutes. And we'll see where we will go. And there are a lot of new topics that we will discuss. We'll discuss after this forward refs. Very important interview question. UseImperativeHandle, one other hook. It's not that much asked in the interviews, but forward refs is asked too much in interviews, okay? It is not confusing. It's not confusing. It's a straightforward logic. Maybe I have confused it. I think I have explained it in a way so that I have made it confused. I'm so sorry for that. But I have tried my best. Right. So let's take 10 minutes break. Maybe I might have confused you. That might be possible. I'm not a good teacher, but it's not confused. It's a very straightforward. Access DOM tree in a current object and then implement whatever you want via DOM. Okay. So let's take a break of 10 minutes. Do not leave the class. Stay here in the break as well. I request you, please make sure you like the video. You ask other people to join. Do not leave. Stay here in the break as well. After this, we are going to continue our forward refs and then we are going to see something else. Okay. See you guys after 9 minutes. Bye. Hey guys, hi everyone, welcome back. Hey guys, hi everyone, welcome back. I hope I'm audible and visible. Am I? Hello guys, hi everyone. Thank you so much, Govind, Rohit, and Tara Prasad for saying these words. Hi Tahir, hi Ankit. Hello guys, rest of the students, please put something in the chat so that I can know how many students are active and then we can start. Welcome back, Akka. Welcome. Perfect. Great. Okay. So before we move forward, let's share some announcement and updates. I have been working on a web application from past few days, 3 to 4 days. In last week itself, related to variable verse. Okay, and I have not hosted it as of now. On any good platform. I have hosted it just on Render, but I have bought a what is this called a domain for it, which is variableverse.com. To make things for me at least from my side. So I have created a small website. It might load, it might take a little bit of time. The idea behind creating this website is I don't know why it's taking this much of time. It should usually not take this much of time, but since it's taking time, let us wait 1 minute for it to load itself. But I think I can get some other Chrome here, and over here I will create variableverse.com, and over here I don't think it should take this much of time. Maybe backend is broken right now. So my point is that we have created a small website, and from now on, from tomorrow, let it open, let it take time. From next class, what we are going to do is you all have to join from this link only. There's a small section that I have created where you will see classes, and as soon as you start joining from there, your attendance will be marked immediately. So you don't have to submit later on the form and all those things. So you can explore this. You should sign in definitely with your own account. And then there is one very important route that I have created, which is student. So if you click on the student, it will first of all ask you to sign in. So let me quickly sign in myself. So Adfar Rashid 136 email.com. Let me give a small overview of it so that you can next class you have to join only from here. Okay. So if you sign in, it will open a dashboard, small dashboard here. Okay. And over here, as you can see, there was a class that I had created today, but I had not actually shared the update related to this class with all of you. That's why I directly shared link today. But from tomorrow, hopefully, you will see all the classes here. Now, when you click on join now, it's going to redirect to YouTube, and then it's going to mark your attendance on your own, and you can see that attendance later on as well. Okay. So this is something that I have created for my easiness, honestly, because I have to see all those attendances, all those forms, and then create, implement mathematics on it, and it takes a lot of time for me. That's why I spent few days on this small website. It's a very small website which I have created only for this purpose. Not only that, you can see few of the options. Number one is start a discussion. So if you click on the start a discussion over here, what you can do is you can ask some questions as well. So whatever your question is, you can paste it here, and other students can post it, like it, and they can share back the response, and I will definitely give you the responses back as well. So from now on, whatever doubts you have, I would really appreciate and really be happy that if my students go and post these doubts here. Not only that, if you see, there's one very important section which I have created, which is called explore content. Although right now I have not put any specific content in it, but there's some small, which is absolutely some random content that I have created, and I'm definitely going to reframe this content for your material purpose as well. So as I said earlier in one of the classes, that I am creating a little bit notes, so I'm going to start pasting those notes here. So this is just a layout. If you see as of now documentation, so later on you will be able to see all the documentation here. It took me 4 days, 3 to 4 days to create this website, and definitely go over here and see from tomorrow you are going to join this particular class from here only. Okay, so I will share the link there as well, but attendance will be marked here only. So you have to join from here. So go and register today, sign in with your account, and then it's going to simply allow you to do this. Not only that, all the classes recordings which you have, you can see all the class recordings here as well. Okay, there's a section which I have created called as MERN. So if you go to this MERN section, you can see that I have created all the class which I have pasted until now here. So this is the link variableverse.com. It's a small website which I have created, and I'm going to work on it from now on continuously so that I can actually create a good platform out of it. And we can maybe later on create a good small free startup out of it. Free, absolutely free. I don't have any but what is this called, agenda earning money out of it. Definitely not. So it's completely free. So I've created a small website. Take a look at it, and please and please make sure that you give a little bit feedback about this website as well, because I have not tested it. So if it breaks somewhere, give me a feedback on my WhatsApp, DM me, and that will be very helpful. Okay. Sir, sell it at rate 49. I will never do that. Never, never, never. Sell this website? No, I'm not going to do that. If you're talking about courses, I will never do that as well. Sir, if you say to make this, we take more than 1 month, it's absolutely okay at this point of time. First of all, understand I have not coded all of this, CSS from scratch. I'm using Tailwind CSS because I know what CSS is. I know what Tailwind is, and I'm using nowadays only Tailwind from last 1 year. So it will take time for you. Why? Because you have to use completely pure CSS. I need to create this component. It will take me 10 minutes to create this, what you see in front of you. Why? Because I know Tailwind. And with Tailwind, I can create this component. I have bought entire Tailwind, premium version as well, right? So please explore this website and register yourself later on, not right now. Don't deviate from the class. It's just for your attendance sake, nothing else. Okay. I need a quick confirm in the chat so we can move forward. Sir, if UseRef does not re-render, so how will we re-render it? Because show update at page with help of DOM directly, na? With help of DOM. And as I said, in most cases, we won't do that. Why? Because for these small purposes, we will actually implement our UseRef. Okay, that's what we're going to do. Let's come back to our class now. Perfect. I think until now we have taken a small understanding of what UseRef is. Okay. Let's understand now what uncontrolled components are. There are 3 input fields. So how many refs do I need here? I need, of course, 3 refs. So let me simply go say constant, and I will simply go create a input ref, and let's say input, instead of input, say let's say name ref. So name ref, what's happening? Name ref is equals to use ref, a React hook. So you have to import it, and initial value is null. What does initial value null mean? That the current will point to the null initially by default, right? And I have to connect it with this input field. So ref is equals to use ref. Done. After that, I will simply go create one other ref, which is constant email ref is equals to use ref. So use ref is equals to null null. Done. And finally, I'm going to say constant, which is another one is, let's say, pass ref, and I'm simply going to say display use ref, and this use ref is equal to null. Perfectly fine. Wonderful. We can see the latest value. We're changing the value. It's not re-rendering. It will never re-render. Use ref will never re-render. Okay. That's the most important point that you need to understand. If it would have been re-rendering at that point of time, the difference between use state and use ref would be absolutely nothing, right? Because use state also stores the value and then re-renders. Use ref stores the value, right? But it will actually keep track of the value in multiple re-renders as well. Now, what I actually want is I simply want one small thing, which is I want to create a button. I already have that value submit. Now, when I click on this button, it should display these 3 at the bottom. So how can I do that? Can I do that actually? Can I do that? Can I do that? Do you think I can, with the help of this refs, I will create a button which is submit. So when I click on this, it will display me what I'm typing inside the input fields after submit. Can I do that? What do you think? What do you think? For example, this is what I want. I simply want that, hey, go here and display name ref. Name ref dot current dot value. Okay, I want it to be displayed like this. By default, instead of this, this input field, I will go here and I will make by default the value over here is equals to, let me go and display value by default is equals to Adfar. Okay. Let's go in the output. Let's see how it behaves. So over, I will go here. At this point of time, is my uncontrolled linked with app.js? Unfortunately, not at this point of time. So let me link this uncontrolled to the app.js. So if I right now go to my web application, it says cannot read properties of null. So why is it null over here? Because have I created? No, I have not. So ref is equals to name ref. It should be name ref, right? Perfect. Now if I go to my output and if I try to refresh my page, is there anything that we are missing? What does it say? It says again null reading value. So what we have to do is we have to somehow tell it to update it, which means we have to re-render it so that it can actually, at this point of view, it's referring to null. But if I call a function on which it's going to trigger it, in that case it will refer to h1 over here. Oh, sorry, this input field. So let's do that. Let me create a function. So function handle submit. And in this function handle submit, the first thing, of course, is going to be e.prevent default, because that's one of the most important things, handle default. And let me pass e over here. Done. And let me call this on this form. So on submit. So on submit, please call a function called as handle submit. I've done. And also, since this is by default, that it should not display, it cannot display it. So what we can do is we can put it in a condition and display it conditionally. So let me define condition, which is going to be a state set my condition, and it's going to be equals to my use state. And by default, I'm going to make it false. So by default, it's false. Now in this case as well, I will simply go and tell it one small thing, which is, hey, do one thing, set my condition to true. Okay, set my condition to true. And then in this case, I will simply pass it if the condition is true. If the condition is true, then in that case, and go over there and display an h1 tag. And inside that h1 tag, I'm simply going to tell it to display actually what to display my input ref, sorry, name ref dot current dot value. Do you think now it will be visible? Do you think now it's going to be visible, guys? Because now it's dependent on a state. And when we talk about state change, it means re-rendering. Because this won't trigger a re-render. But when I click on it will change a state. Now it will trigger a re-render. Is it going to work? Is this going to work? That's a simple question. Let's see. Let's see whether it will work or not. So let me refresh my page. You can see by default it's Adfar here. And let me click on submit. You can see Adfar. Why? Why is Adfar there now? Why exactly? Because now I have, although I have not directly implemented state on the form, I have implemented state on the element so that it can trigger a re-render. And even re-rendering happened, but this UseRef was able to persist the value between multiple re-renders. I hope now it makes sense. I hope all the confusion related to UseRef is completely clear. Why was value not there? Because it cannot actually, trigger a re-render. Now, since I have implemented set state, which will trigger a re-render, so automatically now I have someone which will persist the value between multiple re-renders, which is UseRef itself. So similarly over there, I will go and implement a ref. You can say that. So over ref email ref done, and similarly over I'm going to pass ref over there is equals to what? Is equals to password ref. And also I'm going to go here and let me remove this value Adfar. I don't want it hard coded. I will go now and let's refresh the page. And also before I access them, I will simply go say what my email ref dot current dot value like this. Then space over there. Then I have pass ref. Then current dot ref, right? And now if I go in the output and if I refresh my page, let's go and let's type. Adfar is the name, email is a@a.com, and then password is whatever. And let me submit. We can see Adfar a@a.com. Somehow I'm not seeing password. Somehow password is not visible. Let's see why. Because my passref.current.ref I have displayed. So it's a value here. So now if I go to my output and if I see, now password is also visible. So can we in this case say that actually right now the input field, I am controlling it with help of DOM. And if you do such thing, this type of component that we actually have is called uncontrolled component. I hope uncontrolled components are completely clear. Am I clear? Am I clear? Do we understand what uncontrolled components are? I hope now uncontrolled components are completely clear. Okay. With this, I'm going to start one another very important topic. And trust me, there's no other question that will be asked in controlled component or uncontrolled component. These are the things that will be asked in 100% cases. But there's one very important topic we just asked. What is that? There's a concept which is called as forward ref. A very important function. Very important function. What do we mean by actually that? Okay. Forward refs are a way of passing reference from parent to child. How? Let's see that. I don't know. So let's see that. So let me create a two components. Number one is called parent.js with P capital. So let me delete this and let me create a new component, which is going to be parent ref.js. And then another component will be child ref.js or child.js. Ref chodo yahan pe. Done. Now let me RFC in both cases. So RFC, although RFC over as well, later on I will change RFC definition in both of these components. Let me close this, and let me go here and let me remove this, and I will call some of the component from parent ref or child ref. Okay. Now what do I want? I have a parent component, simple parent component, in which I simply want a ref to be defined. Okay. I simply want a ref to be defined. What does that mean, sir? But sir, as much as we will use input field, we will have to use UseRef for each will. No, it won't be, right? Because see, when we talk about implementing input fields with UseRef, first of all, usually we don't do that. Like you can see, I have created a small web application. The web application which I showed you, variableverse.com, I created it using MERN. I used completely MERN on it, nothing else. Okay. And there are a lot of input fields in it. Everywhere I use pure state, right? I use pure state. That's why I said, if you remember, I said it multiple times, people limit UseRef to input fields. It's not about input fields. It's about DOM. It's about making the current access point. It's a referencer. It's a pointer. In C, you might have discussed something called as pointer. It's a pointer to that particular node. That's what UseRef is. Pointer to that node. Once you connect it with that element with ref attribute. Simple definition, wrap it here. Okay. Now in this parent component, what I'm going to do, I'm simply going to call my child. Okay. And let me create h1 tag. In this h1 tag, I'm going to say forward refs. Think about this. Okay. Then I'm going to call my child component. Although have I not created RFC in it? So I have. So why is it not giving me a suggestion? So child component. No, it's not giving me child component. So why is that? Does child have any specific meaning? So let me go and let me create child. Child component like this. To this child component, I am going to pass a ref. Okay. But before I pass that ref, we have to completely understand what that ref is actually about. Why do we want this? What are forward refs? Whenever our requirement is, we want to pass a reference from parent to a child component. Why? So that parent can access directly the child's DOM node. For example, there is a node inside this child. There can be a lot of elements over here, buttons, texts, images, and there's one node that parent is actually interested in. In that particular case, what we can do is we can use forward ref, simple definition. And remember, forward ref is a method which I will show you in 1 or 2 minutes. It's not a hook. It's a function. It's a simple function. So what I will do is I will simply go. Let's suppose there's a button maybe or h1 or anyone. There's something like this. So constant. Let me say btn ref is equals to. I will create use ref over here. Done. And initially I will point it to null. So current points to null. So button ref use ref is equals to null. Then I will pass this ref as an argument. So ref over there, is nothing but passed as a prop. Try to understand this. So I am passing ref over there as a prop. Ref is equals to, and in this particular case, I'm going to pass my btn ref. So what am I doing over here? I am defining ref in one component, then passing that ref as a prop. Do you think this is a prop, guys? Because whenever we define a component inside that first element, if we pass key value pair, it behaves like a prop. Do we all agree? Do we all agree? Again, definition, let me tell you. Whenever we talk about forward refs are used to pass a ref from a parent component to a child component. So we will define a ref in the parent component, then pass it in the child component. Why? Because our agenda might be, our requirement might be, parent can access easily the child's DOM node in the parent itself. So there's a no DOM tree in the child, and you are interested in it, but you want to read it in the parent. In that case, we will use forward refs. Simple, clear, straightforward definition. So I have passed ref as btn ref over here. Now let's see how am I going to access it over here inside the child. I have to understand that. Let me go here, and instead of defining it like this, I will define it this time in a different way. So I'm going to define the child like this is equals to, and I'm not going to say function like this, no, but I'm going to of course say it like this, but I'm going to pass a method over here which is called forward ref. So instead of defining directly it like this, I will use a method called as forward ref. So forward ref is imported from React. It's from React. Okay, so forward ref React. Is it meaning? No, it does not mean that. Allow me some time and then I will make you understand it. Over here now it will receive an argument like this, like this, like this, like this. So it means if you look at this syntax, there's a variable that I am defining in which I am storing a function called as forward ref. I'm not creating normal React component. I am storing a method called as forward ref method. Now it's a specific type of component. It means that the component that I'm expecting over it's going to receive two things. One are normal props that we have, but there's also a specific prop which I have passed. It's called a ref. So forward ref receives the component it internally creates over there. You can say that it receives two arguments. Number one is normal props. Maybe over here I will, let's suppose later on I will define a function. So function over there is equals to handle click. So this handle click, what I actually want is that this handle click function should be accessed whatever it does. I don't care about that. It should be accessed inside the child. So what am I going to do? I'm simply going to pass a prop called as on click, in which I will pass my handle click. Now, if you see, this particular is a normal prop, but this is a specific prop. Now, it's a very special prop. It's a reference. It's a UseRef reference, right? Now, over here inside this particular element, one, it will receive normal props. Second, over there, it's going to actually receive another very important argument called as ref. Now, this ref, if you look, is nothing but the ref of this particular element. So we have created a reference inside parent, but I have transferred as a prop, as a specific prop to my child. And you can access this specific prop with a method called as forward ref. Now, over here, you can define whatever, you can simply tell it to return. So I will simply go here, instead of this curly brace, I will implement this brace so that I can tell it to directly return. And over here, let's suppose I will create a button. Now, in this particular button, what am I supposed to do? I'm simply supposed to do anything, whatever. What? Let's suppose I will pass some other document here, which is going to say click to focus. Click to focus. Now, do we all agree that this is also a prop? Do we all agree that this is also a prop to this child component? Because I am calling it as a complete element, complete component. Then I'm passing something in between. What is it? What is it, guys? It is a prop also. And what is this prop called? Children prop. This is called children prop. It's a prop. Yes, it's a prop called as children prop. So if I have to access it here, let's suppose I will simply pass props.children. And since I have not exported it, so let me go here and let me export it. So export default and my child. Let's go and let's see how things are working right now. Okay, so let me go into app.js and let me call my parent ref like this, like this, like this. And if I right now go to my output, we can clearly see button says click to focus. So yes, I have passed a prop over there, which means even when I create this component, past use forward ref from React, it's properly behaving as a component. That's why I said it's a component. It's a component, but with I'm forwarding a ref over here. But what does that mean? That means simply I will go here, say ref. Now ref is equals to, and we know this is a ref attribute, normal argument that we have. Normal argument that we have a reference to the button, and over here I'm going to use which ref? The ref which is being passed from the parent. So with this, can we all agree? Can we all agree that this ref is nothing but actually this BTN ref? So with this, what I have done is I have exposed the child DOM node to the parent DOM node, to the parent itself. So whenever you want the parent to control the child's DOM, you want to access the child DOM, or later on we'll see a method called as imperative method. You want to implement and control those custom imperative methods. We use forward refs. Now, if I am saying that the reference that I have created with this button is actually this BTN ref, so can we say BTN ref is nothing but an object in which current points to this button only? To this button only? Yes. It points to the button. Current points to the button. So can we do something like this? Maybe not, but of course we can. So can we do something like this? What can we do, Sarji? Can we do over here and go and simply tell it the BTN ref that I actually have for this, please access its current and make focus on it. Put focus on it. So I have exposed a DOM node from child to the parent, and then I'm implementing methods in parent. Now, whatever my requirements in parent with respect to that child node is, I am doing that. And if I want to go now to my web application, click on this, it receives focus, but over what am I doing? I'm not doing anything else, right? Okay, it's a button. So let me go here. Although buttons also receive focus, that's not the point, but current dot text content over there, it's going to be equals to what? It's going to be equals to hello world. Done. I thought it's an input field. So you can say something like this. Although hello world, I will say click it here, right? Let's go now and let's refresh the page. And now if I click on this, it still does not work. Why is that? Let's figure out. So I am saying that ref BTN ref properly works, and on click handle click. Now this is a very good thing that has happened. So it will give us some time to debug. Now how do we debug? Now see, I am implementing task. How? Let's see that. I will say console.log adfar. Console is your brahmastra always whenever you have any things it's not working. So let's see whether adfar is being printed or not. So adfar is not being printed. You can see adfar is not being printed. Why? Because inside my child I have not called my on click. I'm so dumb. So on click, I'm going to say props dot my on click. Like this. Now let's go to the output and let's see how it works. So if I click on adfar is being called and it says hello world, click it. So we have exported the child DOM to the parent child DOM node to the parent element, and for that the method that we actually use is forward ref. So if anyone asks you in the interview, hey, what are forward refs? I hope that you will be able to answer it, right, guys? Right? Hana? Perfect. In this case, let me define one another component. Okay. So let me go here and let me define a particular file with the name of imperative, or let's say input comp.js. Let's suppose this is the component that I'm defining. One another very important topic, and this is the last topic of today's class. I want to also I want to treat this input field as my parent. So what I want to do is, I simply want one small thing, which is that I want to go and expose this particular, I want to treat this as parent and then access the reference in the child, whatever that element is. So let me get one other component. Let's say this is going to be my fancy input .js, like this. Now in the input component, I will create RFC normal. Now I will call my input component in this, right? So let me go inside the input, fancy input RFC Please try to focus, pay close attention, because there's a hook that I'm about to teach you and why this hook is important. Okay. So I'm going to go here and call my fancy input. So the first point to note here is that input component is the parent of fancy input. Now over here, I want to expose the fancy inputs DOM node to input comp. So how can I do that? So maybe there's an element over there's an input field over there, or there's something in over here, a node. I want to expose that node in the input component. How can I do that? How can I do that? Quickly, guys. How can I do that? How can I expose the node of child into parent? By using a method called as I've taught you this 2 minutes back. Question is, this input component is a parent of fancy component. Let me remove the name. It's something very weird, this name. Okay. So let me delete this name. It's confusing. Let me create this. So parent input .js. Okay. So this parent input that I actually have, it is the parent of fancy input. So fancy input here. Now, maybe later on, I will create some components over here. Maybe inside this, there's a h1 that says hello. Now, I want to expose this node to my parent input. How can I do that? That's the question. Come on, guys, answer in the chat. Anyone? UseRef, of course, I will use, because to expose the node, I will use UseRef. But from the child to the parent, how can I do that? I will use forward refs, right? I will use forward refs. So in my parent input, I will simply define, let's suppose, I will simply say constant input ref is equals to UseRef, like this. And initially, it's going to point to null. Then over here, I will simply create a ref, and then I'm going to implement pass a hook called as input ref, like this. Now to expose this input ref over in the child, I must no matter what, I must forward it so that I can access this there. And for that, we use forward refs. Don't we guys use forward refs? Of course, we use forward refs, right? Because I have to access it there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here and over here, simply this function that I have. So I'm going to make it constant fancy input like this. I'm not teaching you anything new. It's the same thing which we had discussed already from in last 10 minutes. So fancy input like this, and I'm going to use a method called as forward refs. Now, when we talk about forward refs, how many arguments does it receive? It receives 2 arguments, right? So forward ref over there. Number 1 is the props, normal props that we have. Number 2 over there is the ref itself. And then over here, I will simply tell it to return. And in this case, I can simply create anything, and that I can connect ref, and then it will be exposed to the parent. So straightforward thing, but that's not what I'm here for. I am going to define a method. Okay. And over here, I'm going to even itself define one ref. So constant, already I have defined a ref over there. Very good. But I am going to define another ref. So let's suppose it's my fancy ref is equals to, I'm going to use ref over here like this. What am I missing? What am I missing here, guys? What am I missing? Okay, so this is JavaScript that I'm typing. So in this case, we must go and write curly braces. So over here, I'm going to go here and click enter. Now here, done. And after that, I'm going to go here, paste it. So if I paste it now, there's no error now. So null, UseRef null, done. After that, I'm simply going to tell it to return. Now, what is it going to return in this case? It's going to return my input field. Okay, input element like this. But to this, I am actually going to create ref that I have, and I'm going to make it fancy ref. Now, what's happening over here? Do you think I have used my parents ref? Do you think I have used parents ref or the ref which I've created here? So at this point of time, I'm not creating anything. I'm not dealing with parent anything. I'm simply creating its own ref. and then I am actually passing it to the return input field. So whenever this component is called, it is going to create an input field that has a link with the fancy ref, but this fancy ref belongs to this child itself as well. Now I am going to use a hook. First of all, let me show you what it does, and then we will come to its definition. There's a very important hook called as UseImperativeHandle, and it receives two arguments. Number one is the ref which is being forwarded from the parent, which is ref itself. Number two is the callback function, like this, like this, like this, like this. And what it returns those methods. What I'm talking about, I will tell you that. So at this point of time, I have implemented a small design, and I'm simply telling it that the reference that I actually have, the reference is completely independent, at least at this point of time, to the parent. This reference belongs to the same element where we are working. And in parent ref, I have an input ref, properly separate ref. But now I have used a method called as imperative ref. What do we mean by imperative ref, first of all? And why will we use this? The requirement and agenda is very clear. How can I phrase this? That whenever we want the, we have exposed an instance. We have exposed an instance by a ref when we use forward ref, right? We are exposing a small instance. But now if we want to customize that instance now, instead of exposing this particular node, I don't want to expose this entire node. I'm not interested in. But I want something that I want to customize the ref from the parent and then link something with it. Then in that case, I will use imperative handle. No, sir, we are not able to understand. Let me understand. Let me make you understand this. Remember the definition? I will explain the definition once again, surely. But let's remember it. Let's see first of all what we mean. In this case, since I am telling it that this use imperative is going to return object, right? It returns an object. So of course it will have key value pairs. So let me create first key value pair as focus. In this particular case, it will be a function like this, like this, like this, like this, like this. Where I will simply tell it fancy ref that I have. Fancy ref, please, to its current, please attach focus. Then after that, second key, whatever that second key is, whatever function you want, maybe blur, right? Although let's not have blur, let's have disable. Disable will be much more visible. So disable is another thing that I'm actually attaching. Like this, like this, like this, like this, like this. In which the fancy ref that I have, current.disable is equals to true. Okay, so whenever disable is being called, it's going to execute a function where the fancy ref of that input field is going to make its current disabled attribute true, which means it will make it disabled. Then after that, I'm going to define enable maybe. Then in this particular case, what am I going to do? Fancy ref.current.disabled false. Right now, am I doing anything related to the forward ref? Yes, I am. Over here, I'm passing an argument. But sir, I don't know what it's doing over here. Let me tell you. In this case, I will simply say export default first of all, and then fancy input. Okay. Please pay close attention, because if you create that confusion in your mind, it's not going to be removed easily. Okay. Now, I know that the reference which I have created here, I have passed it to the same input field. Then over I have a separate reference, but then I did something in between, and I don't know what's happening over here. I don't know. Really, I don't know what's happening. So let's understand this. Over here, apart from this fancy input, I know one thing, that this fancy input, when it's going to be called, it's a function, it is going to create an input field. We know that. That's one thing for sure. That even at this point of time, if I go to my output, let me remove this forward ref, parent ref, sorry, and let me call my parent input. So parent input like this. And if I right now go to my web application, you can clearly see input field. Why is there input field? Because I have called my fancy input here. I've called my fancy input here, and it's going to return every single time input field. So I hope why input is there, it's completely clear. Okay. And as long as I'm calling the same thing, you can clearly see those many input fields will be created. So that's very simple, right? But now what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to go here, create a button. Now on this button, I'm simply going to tell it, do something, whatever, maybe focus. Okay. Then another button that I actually have is going to have disable. Then over another button that is going to have is enable. After that, I'm simply going to go here and tell it on my click. So I have a question. I will first of all let me explain this, and in the meantime, you can put your question. Okay. Now what I've done is on a click, please focus. I can simply go input_ref.current.focus. But do you think there's any input ref inside element which is input field? No, there's nothing. It is part of this fancy input. So I cannot write input_ref.current.focus. No, that's not what I'm going to do. But I'm going to do something else. I am going to tell it to call a function where it's simply going to go and tell it that the input ref that I actually have, for that, please go and in its current implement focus. So I understood this. Very good. This is what we already did, right? There's nothing wrong in it, although there's no input field here. But I think we know what focus does. Very good. Similarly, I'm going to go and implement on click like this, like this, like this, like this. Where I will simply do input ref dot current that I actually have on this, please implement disable. Now there's no disable function normally, right? But we have created somewhere disable, and we'll understand how it is going to work. Similarly, over I'm going to go and write on click. Now on this on click, I will call a function, and then I'm simply going to say that my input ref that I actually have on that go in its current, and then please call a function called as enable. Let's see whether it works or not. And I don't know what's happened over here. But if I click on, you can clearly see it receives focus. If I click on it, disabled. I'm not able to type anything. If I click on, it's enabled, which means all of these three buttons are working. But sir, how exactly? And what has happened over here? If you look at fancy input, what I've done is I have used a method, a hook, which is called UseImperativeHandle. A very important hook. You can see it says it customizes the instance value that's exposed to the parent component when using ref. But what does that mean? That means when we talk about forward ref means expose any node from the child to the parent. If I would have simply done over here ref is equals to ref, what does that mean? What does this actually means? Ref is equals to ref. The ref which I am receiving from the parent expose this input field to the parent. Yes or no? I will answer that, Rohit. Yes or no? Do you think that this means, hey, the ref that I have expose the entire input field to the parent? Right. This is what it means. Right. But sometimes if that's not what your requirement is, you do not want to expose your entire node to the parent, but you want some functionalities of it. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? My agenda is not to send the entire node to the parent. I don't want to control the entire node, and I don't want to expose the entire node. But I want some limited functions, limited things to attach to that input feed and then expose those key value pairs. That's what we use with UseImperativeHandle, which means the parent ref that I have actually forwarded to this element, to that parent, I am telling it to actually attach some functionalities of the ref, which is part of child, which is focus function, disabled, enabled, or disabled, whatever it is. I hope this makes sense. I hope you have completely understood what UseImperative handle is actually used for. Am I clear? Am I clear? Give me a quick confirmation in the chat. Quick confirmation, everyone. So when we say, even when I try to hover on it, it says customize the instance value. It simply means that we decide the parent can access from the child node when it uses ref, but not the entire node, but some things of it. So our intention is not to expose the entire node, but something with it. I hope this makes sense, right? Now see, one last thing, and then we will conclude our today's class because it's already been 2 hours. Okay. See, look at this. Right now, the input field it's returning, it is connected to a reference which is defined in the same component as well. So I am not exposing this node to the forward ref from the parent. That's one thing. But then I am connecting using my UseImperativeHandle. I am connecting the parent ref with an object. Now that object is simply going to perform three things. One is focus, disable, enable. So the parent ref which is being passed to this from the forward ref, I am attaching an object with it which is performing three things, which means that the forward ref is going to have an object attached to it, which is this. But what does these things do? They are targeting internally these input field. So they are targeting input fancy ref dot current dot focus fancy ref, which means they are targeting this input field, which is a limited functionality. So you cannot do outside of these three over here with respect to input field. You cannot access the input field entirely, but you can access these three things over here. Why? Because they are connected with the parent ref. That's why use imperative handle receives two arguments. Number one is the parent ref and the function itself. And you can clearly see now if I have a button, I am able to call focus, disable, enable. Why? Because they are right now attached with the parent ref because of this use imperative handle. So that's why this makes sense. Why? Because although there is no direct connection with that input field, but forward ref has a connection with the input field via these three things. Hello, Sanskar. Am I clear, guys? Am I clear? Do we understand now refs entirely? Now, do we need to put this much of focus on input refs? No, we don't. We need to learn only two things out of it. Number one is references itself. References, you have to put too much focus on it, okay? Doesn't matter how good you want to learn and how many things you want to explore, you have to know what UseRef will do. So for that, definitely put good amount of focus. Another thing is forward refs. Not from the perspective of whether you will implement it inside your project. No, I have never implemented it in any project. Never ever in my life. But I have received this question in interviews at least 10 times until now. What is forward ref? Show me an example of it. So you should know how to write the syntax of forward ref. It receives only one argument, which is callback function. That callback function in turn receives two arguments. Number one is props, and one is ref. So you should know this. I have never been, no one has asked this use imperative handle lately, only once. But to a refresher, no one will ask you what this use imperative handle is. But since we are discussing refs and there was some time, that's why I taught it. Otherwise, this was not my plan. It's not a custom hook. It's a React hook. Am I clear, guys? Input ref at parent, what does that mean? So over here, it will still display, this na kya kehte isko, null. So console.log input ref. And in the meantime, let me share the link of addends and then we will see what the console is. So please mark your addends and please remember, from next class, you are going to join the class from the website itself only as well. Okay, please do that. So Control X. Mark the addends in the meantime. Give me the feedback of today's class quickly. And let me refresh the page. And if I click on this, we got an object and that object has three functions, simple. Right? So you can see entire node is not exposed to it. There are three functions. Number one is focus, fancy.current.this, and three functions, which we actually did because that's what we told. We can clearly see over here as well that imperative ref is returning an object, and that's what it's there as well. Okay. Cricketer in Nitin. I'm seeing you first time. I'm not sure. Please, all the new students, please subscribe and share and also like this. Okay. So in the next class, that's tomorrow. Tomorrow we will have only 1 hour of class. We are going to discuss use effect back. And then in another class, we are going to discuss our React routing DOM. So Sunday's class, morning class is going to be one of the very important classes in which we will discuss routing in React. And then we will see in future what other classes we can have. And use reduce hook will be discussed tomorrow. Okay. Am I clear? So make sure to like this video. Once this class ends, give a valuable comment because I cannot see comments later on. So Rohit, Pramod, and everyone, please make sure to put a valuable comment. So actually, because of today's class, I can say that no one can teach in such way. Great. Thank you so much. Ha. Yes, S25. Browser router is the first thing that we will discuss over there. So thank you so much, guys. I hope you have marked the attendance already. See you in the next class, which is tomorrow, 7 p.m. in the evening, 1 hour class. Okay. It will take maybe more 7, 8 classes, sorry. 6 classes, maybe. Okay. If I include Next.js as well, then it's going to take another week. More 2 classes, okay? Which means 8 to 10 classes. If I include Next.js. If I don't include Next.js, then in that case, it's going to take only 6 classes, I guess. Maybe more than that. Okay. Thank you so much, guys. Good night. And make sure you put a valuable comment after the class ends. See you in the next class. Thank you so much. Good night. Thank you so much. Bye. Good night, everyone. Good night.